Okay, so this is going to be pretty rare, but this is the third video and the final one in this lesson for the notes. So what I included here is a nice little diagram that helps you kind of think about those real numbers and then the subsets as they get more and more specific. So that's just there as a little reference for you guys in case the wording at the top was a little confusing. So right here, this gets into inequalities. I'm not going to go super in depth to inequalities, but I still like us to know the symbols at least. So an inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares two expressions using an inequality symbol. So the way you read inequalities is always left to right. So this first symbol, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. We will go more in depth into inequalities later in the class. Okay, I think you guys probably already had some exposure to it, so hopefully this feels a little bit like review. So, inequality that compares the numbers square root of 17 and 4 1/3. For me, to compare two numbers more easily, I'd like them to be in the same form. So I would just literally take the square root of 17 and round it. So square root of 17 is about 4.12. 4 1/3. Think about that. It's 4.3 repeating. So when I read this, 4.12 is less than 4.33 repeating. So I'm going to write that inequality symbol. And that's pretty much it. I like to just get two numbers to look like the same thing, to both be decimals if I can, and then I compare them. And that's pretty much it, okay, for comparing real numbers. So, in the got it, go ahead and try it, wait a few seconds, pause the video, and then I'll show you my solutions. Okay, so I've got my solutions up there for this first got it in this video. All I did, I punched square root of 129 into my calculator. I got 11.36. So I can tell myself that is definitely less than 11.52 or 11 52/100ths. Okay? Moving ahead, can I write this inequality I just got in another way? Yeah. If 11.36 is less, that means 11.52 is greater. So essentially all I did was I flipped the entire inequality around. I put this number 11.52 first, I put the greater than symbol, and I had 11.36 at the end. So that just took my inequality and flipped it around. And that's how I got my last solution, okay? Next, the correct order of numbers. Putting numbers on a number line. This is another thing where to compare them, it might help to get them as decimals. So square root of 4 is 2. I'll leave 0.4 alone. Negative 2/3 is about negative 0.67. Square root of 2. Square root of 2 is about 1.41. And then we have negative 1.5. So it's kind of a lot of numbers here. Seems like a small number line, but we can look at this and we can say, okay, my biggest number, I can say off the bat, my biggest number is 2. My largest number, my greatest number, and my least number is negative 1.5. So I kind of made my first mistake there. Maybe not my first mistake, but I use the words biggest, smallest. I want to get away from that. Greatest and least, because biggest, smallest doesn't really mean a whole lot, okay? Greatest and least means a little bit more. So my greatest number is 2. My least number is negative 1.5. So the way I would maybe do this is I would go negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 on my number line, okay? And then I can graph my points, okay? I'm going to maybe use a different color here. I'm going to graph my point 2, okay? 0.4, that's between 0 and 1, maybe a little bit less than halfway. Negative 0.67 is between 0 and negative 1, a little bit more than halfway. 1.41 is between 1 and 2, a little bit less than halfway, and then negative 1.5 is smack dab halfway between negative 1, negative 2. So the correct order of these numbers would be, I would go negative 1.5 first, then negative 0.67, then I would go to 0.4, 1.41, and then 2. That would be the correct order of those numbers. And that's a number line kind of helps you, because least to greatest, you read left to right. It's easier to read left to right that way. Okay? So the number line is there just to kind of help you. If you don't think you need the number line, that's fine. If I don't ask you to graph, that's okay. But if I ask you to graph, which is going to be the next example, then I'd expect you to help you kind of order those from least to greatest. So, last problem here that I want you to cover. I want you guys to pause it right now, wait a few seconds, start it back up, and check your answers with me on here. All right? Okay, so to explain this, I just rewrote my numbers all as decimals. So I got 3.5, negative 2.1, 3, negative 3.5, and 2.24. So me putting those on that number line, left to right, that allows me to then say negative 3.5, maybe I give myself more space, negative 3.5 is the least, negative 2.1, second place, and then I'm moving to my positive numbers. My positive numbers, 2.24, and then 3, and then 3.5. So comparing numbers is important, okay? Understanding how to compare numbers and order them is important. So after all that, you guys are going to have a practice that kind of puts together these ideas. So move on to the next step. Make sure you're checking with me on that practice. And then once you're ready for the checkpoint, just make sure you flag me down and I'll get that to you.